The massive chamber of the Galactic Council stretched out like a giant bowl. Hundreds of different alien beings filled the seats that curved around the central speaking area. Some had wings, others had many arms. Some looked like walking crystals, while others seemed to be made of living metal. The air buzzed with translator devices turning thousands of different languages into understandable words. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked into the chamber with her small team of humans behind her. She had been chosen to represent Earth at these peace talks. The talks were supposed to decide how the galaxy would be rebuilt after the terrible war against the Devourers. Those monster-like creatures had tried to eat everything living in the galaxy. For 5 long years, they had destroyed entire worlds and killed billions of people. Elena remembered how the war had started. The ancient alien races had panicked when the Devourers first appeared. Their old weapons did not work. Their battle plans failed. Many species had hidden in their home systems, hoping the monsters would pass them by. But humans had done something different. Earth was still new to space travel. Humans had only known about aliens for 50 years. But when the Devourers came, humans did not run. They studied the enemy. They learned how the creatures moved and how they thought. Human scientists worked day and night to find new ways to fight. Human soldiers volunteered for dangerous missions that other aliens would not even try. The turning point came when Captain Sarah Chen figured out how to walk in space without a ship. She could move through the void like she was swimming through water. Other humans learned this trick too. Soon human void walkers were appearing inside Devourer ships, destroying them from within. No other species could do this. It scared the aliens, but it also saved them. Elena looked around the chamber now. She saw the same aliens who had begged for human help during the war. Earth had sent its best people to fight. 12 billion humans had died protecting alien worlds they had never seen. Human families had sent their children to fight for strangers who lived on distant stars. But today felt different. Elena noticed that the human seats were not with the other important delegates. Instead, they were placed at a small table off to the side, like children who were allowed to watch but not speak. A sign on the table read, "Junior Observer Status, Terran Delegation." The Altarian Chancellor stood up to begin the meeting. His body looked like a walking diamond, with light dancing inside his crystal form. His voice echoed through the chamber as the translators worked. "We gather today to rebuild our galaxy," he said. "The senior species will discuss the important matters. The younger races may observe and learn from their betters." Elena felt anger building in her chest. Younger races? After what humans had done in the war? She looked at the other human delegates. Colonel Martinez had lost 3 sons in the war. Dr. Kim had spent 2 years on a plague world, saving alien civilians. Commander Jackson had led the final attack that destroyed the last Devourer hive ship. The Zephyrian High Counselor began to speak. These aliens looked like giant birds with silver feathers and 4 arms. The High Counselor's voice was high and sharp. "We must address the human military situation," he said. During the war, humans developed dangerous new technologies. They learned to fight in ways that concern us. We cannot allow such weapons to exist without proper oversight. Other aliens nodded in agreement. Elena watched in disbelief as they discussed humans like they were a problem to be solved. "I propose that human military forces be supervised by a joint council committee," the High Counselor continued. "Their weapons research must be monitored. Their void-walking abilities need to be regulated. We cannot risk another species becoming too powerful." The chamber erupted in clicking, chirping, and buzzing sounds as different aliens showed their support. Elena stood up slowly. The talking stopped as hundreds of alien eyes turned toward her. "Excuse me," Elena said. Her voice carried clearly through the chamber. "I believe there has been a mistake." The Altarian Chancellor's crystal form sparkled with annoyance. The junior observers were not given permission to speak. "Junior observers?" Elena repeated. "Is that what you call the people who saved your worlds? The species that lost 12 billion lives protecting you?" Uncomfortable shuffling sounds came from many of the aliens. But the Chancellor did not back down. "Humans are new to galactic society," he said. "You must learn proper protocols. You must understand your place in the order of things." Elena felt something cold and hard settle in her stomach. "Our place? We thought our place was as equals, as allies who fought and bled together." "In time, perhaps," the Chancellor said dismissively. "But first you must prove you can follow the rules. You must show that you can be responsible members of galactic civilization." The Zephyrian High Counselor spread his silver wings. "The human question is settled. A supervisory committee will be formed to oversee their military development. They will report their activities to this council. This is for the safety of all civilized species. Elena looked around the chamber. These were the beings her people had died for. These were the worlds her children had saved. Not one of them spoke up for humanity. Not one of them remembered who had actually won the war. She gathered her papers slowly and placed them in her case. Colonel Martinez and the other delegates followed her lead, standing up from their small side table. "Where are you going?" the Chancellor asked. "The session is not over." Elena turned to face the assembled aliens. Her voice was calm and steady, but every human in the galaxy would hear the steel beneath her words. "We came here to negotiate as equals," she said. "We came here to help build a better galaxy with our partners and allies. Instead, you treat us like dangerous children who need to be watched and controlled." She closed her case with a sharp click. "You want to supervise us? You want to regulate us? You want to put us in our place?" Elena shook her head. "Humanity withdraws from these peace talks. When you are ready to speak to us as the sovereign equals we have proven ourselves to be, you know where to find us." The human delegation walked toward the exit. Their footsteps echoed in the suddenly silent chamber. No alien moved or spoke as they watched the humans leave. At the doorway, Elena stopped and looked back one more time. "You seem to have forgotten who actually won the war," she said. "Perhaps you should remember that before you decide who needs supervision." The doors closed behind them with a soft hiss. In the chamber, 847 alien species sat in stunned silence. None of them had expected the humans to simply walk away. None of them had imagined that their newest members would refuse to be junior partners. The Altarian Chancellor tried to restart the meeting, but the mood had changed. Whispered conversations began throughout the chamber. Some aliens wondered if they had made a mistake. Others insisted that humans needed to learn their place. But deep down, many of them remembered the dark days when the Devourers seemed unstoppable. They remembered the fear, the desperation, and the feeling that all hope was lost. They remembered the day when human ships appeared in their skies, bringing not conquest but salvation. Now those same humans had walked away. And for the first time since the peace talks began, some of the aliens wondered if they would be safe without them. 3 months passed after the humans walked out of the peace talks. At first, most alien leaders thought the humans would come crawling back. They believed that Earth needed the galaxy more than the galaxy needed Earth. They were wrong. The first sign of trouble came in the shipping lanes. Captain Vex of the Procyon Trade Federation was reviewing his weekly cargo reports when he noticed something strange. The numbers were all wrong. His assistant, a nervous creature with 6 eyes, brought him the confirmation he dreaded. "Sir, all human trading vessels have disappeared from our routes," the assistant said. No explanation. No warning. They just stopped coming. Captain Vex felt his stomach drop. Human cargo ships had been carrying the most valuable goods in the galaxy. Their medical supplies could cure diseases that had plagued alien worlds for centuries. Their food preservation technology had ended famines on 17 different planets. Their manufacturing processes had made everyday items cheaper and better for everyone. Now those ships were gone. Dr. Kess of the Centauri Medical Collective faced an even worse problem. She stood in her laboratory looking at samples of a deadly plague that was spreading through the outer colonies. For months, human scientists had been working with her team to develop a cure. They had been so close to success. The human researchers understood biological systems in ways that amazed even the most advanced alien doctors. But the human lab had gone quiet. Their communication channels were closed. Their research data had been encrypted and locked away. Dr. Kess watched helplessly as the plague continued to spread, knowing that the cure was probably sitting in some human computer that she could no longer access. The military situation was even more serious. Admiral Zorex of the Combined Fleet had built his entire defense strategy around human innovations. Human voidwalkers provided reconnaissance that no other species could match. They could appear deep in enemy territory, gather intelligence, and disappear before anyone knew they were there. Human tactical systems coordinated fleet movements across multiple star systems. Their early warning networks detected threats from the edge of galaxy. Their logistics ships kept the Combined Fleet supplied and ready for action. Without warning, all of it stopped working. Admiral Zorex stared at his command displays as system after system went offline. The early warning network that protected the rim worlds flickered and died. Patrol routes that depended on human navigation technology became impossible to maintain. His fleet's advanced communication systems fell silent one by one. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving shutdown notices from all human support systems. They're implementing something called Operation Closed Door." The Admiral had never heard of this operation. None of the alien intelligence services had any information about it. The humans had planned their withdrawal in complete secrecy. Back on Earth, President Chen stood before the Terran Assembly. The representatives of humanity sat in rows, their faces showing the same quiet determination that had won the war against the Devourers. "My fellow humans," President Chen began, "we offered our partnership to the galaxy and received condescension in return. We offered our blood and were told we needed supervision. We offered our friendship and were treated as junior members who should be grateful for scraps from their table." The assembly hall was silent. Every person there had lost someone in the war. Every family had sacrificed for aliens who now wanted to control them. Therefore, the president continued, "Humanity will chart its own course among the stars. We will trade with those who treat us as equals. We will defend those who respect our sovereignty. And we will build our own future, free from the arrogance of those who think age equals wisdom." The assembly rose as one person and applauded, but this was not the angry cheering of a mob. This was the quiet, determined approval of a people who had made their choice and would see it through to the end. In the depths of the Solar Defense Command, Fleet Admiral Santos was already implementing the president's decision. Operation Closed Door had been planned for months, ever since it became clear that the peace talks would not go well for humanity. Every human ship, every human base, every human research facility in alien space had received their orders. "All units, execute closed door protocol," Santos spoke into his communicator. "Withdraw all assets from Council space. Implement communication blackout. Begin Phase 2 of the Colonial Expansion Project." Across the galaxy, human facilities began shutting down. Research stations that had been developing cures for alien diseases went dark. Mining operations that had been supplying rare materials to alien worlds ceased production. Military bases that had been protecting alien trade routes activated their self-destruct sequences. The Corvan Empire discovered the consequences when rebellion broke out in their outer territories. For years, human diplomatic teams had been quietly mediating disputes between different ethnic groups on the outer worlds. Human peacekeepers had prevented small disagreements from becoming violent conflicts. Human aid workers had provided food and medical care to refugee populations. Without human intervention, old hatreds flared back to life. Rebel groups that had been kept in check by human-mediated peace agreements began attacking government facilities. The Corvan military, which had relied on human intelligence about rebel activities, found themselves fighting blind against enemies they could no longer track. Emperor Kess of the Corvan Empire called an emergency meeting of his military commanders. "How did this happen so quickly?" he demanded. These territories were stable just 3 months ago. His intelligence chief, a reptilian being with golden scales, looked uncomfortable. "Sire, it appears that human diplomatic teams were much more involved in maintaining peace than we realized. They were mediating dozens of disputes that we never even knew existed." The Emperor felt a chill run down his spine. "Are you telling me that humans were preventing rebellions that we didn't even know were brewing?" "Yes, sire. And now those humans are gone." Similar problems were erupting throughout the galaxy. The Vegan Mining Consortium's asteroid operations ground to a halt when their human engineering teams disappeared overnight. The alien workers had no idea how to maintain the complex machinery that humans had installed. Productivity dropped by 70% in the first week. The Aquilian communes faced a food crisis when their human-designed agricultural systems began failing. The alien farmers had learned to use the human technology, but had never understood how it actually worked. Without human technicians to maintain the systems, crop yields plummeted. Even worse was the security situation. The Draconian hegemony lost contact with 3 of their border worlds when Devourer bioships attacked along routes that human scouts would have detected weeks in advance. The hegemony's ancient warships, designed more for ceremony than combat, were no match for even the weakest Devourer creatures. By the end of the 3rd month, panic was spreading through the council chambers. Chancellor Thex of the Altarians called emergency session after emergency session, but no one had any solutions. The galaxy's economy was collapsing. Their defenses were failing. Their colonies were in rebellion, and through it all the humans remained silent. Some council members proposed military action to force humanity back to the negotiations, but their military leaders quietly explained that human ships had disappeared from all known locations. Their bases had been abandoned or destroyed. Even their home system of Sol had become strangely quiet, with automated defense systems politely but firmly turning away all alien visitors. It was as if humanity had simply vanished from the galaxy, taking with them all the innovations and improvements that had made life better for everyone else. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson about the difference between being needed and being appreciated. For 50 years, humans had quietly made themselves indispensable to galactic civilization. They had shared their knowledge freely, helped their neighbors generously, and protected the weak without asking for anything in return. Now they were gone, and the galaxy was discovering just how much it had depended on the junior species it had dismissed so casually. In the empty corridors of abandoned human facilities, alien workers found messages left behind. They all said the same thing in simple, clear language. "Thank you for teaching us that we are not welcome here. We have learned the lesson well." 6 months had passed since humanity walked away from the peace talks. What started as economic problems had become a full crisis that threatened to destroy galactic civilization. The council chambers, once filled with proud alien leaders, now echoed with desperate voices and angry accusations. Chancellor Thex stood before the emergency assembly. His crystal body, which used to shine with confidence, now flickered with dim, worried light. The reports on his desk painted a picture of disaster across 17 sectors of space. "The situation continues to deteriorate," he announced to the gathered aliens. "The Corvan Empire has lost control of 43 outer worlds. The rebellions are spreading faster than we can track them." In the audience, Emperor Kess of the Corvan Empire slumped in his seat. His golden scales had lost their shine. Just that morning, he had received word that rebels had captured the capital city of Corvan Prime's largest moon. His military commanders told him they needed at least 2 years to retrain their forces in the human tactics that had kept the peace before. But they didn't have 2 years. They barely had 2 months. The draconian hegemony faced an even worse situation. High Commander Drek stood up to address the council, his metallic body bearing new scars from recent battles. 3 more worlds have gone silent, he reported. Long-range sensors detected Devourer bioships in those systems. By the time our fleets arrived, there was nothing left but dead rock. Murmurs of fear rippled through the chamber. The Devourers were supposed to be defeated. The war was supposed to be over. But without human early warning systems, the remaining Devourer creatures were picking off isolated worlds one by one. "How many ships did you lose?" asked the Zephyrian High Counselor. His silver feathers were ruffled with anxiety. "All of them," Drex replied quietly. 43 warships, 15,000 crew members. Our vessels are built for ceremony and intimidation, not for fighting creatures that can tear through metal with their bare claws." Dr. Kess of the Centauri Medical Collective had more bad news. "The plague in the outer colonies has spread to 12 more worlds. Without human bio-research teams, we cannot develop effective treatments. The death toll has reached 57 million and is climbing." She paused, looking around the chamber at faces that showed growing desperation. "I have studied human medical techniques for 3 years," she continued. "Their understanding of biological systems surpasses our knowledge by centuries. They could cure diseases that we considered impossible to treat. They could heal genetic damage that we thought was permanent. Without them, we are watching civilizations die from problems that humans could solve in weeks." The economic news was just as terrible. Captain Vex of the Trade Federation reported that interstellar commerce had dropped by 60%. Human cargo ships weren't just carrying goods, he explained. They were the backbone of our entire transportation network. They knew routes through dangerous space that we had never mapped. They had relationships with independent traders that we had never contacted. The Aquilian communes were facing starvation. Their food production systems, optimized by human agricultural scientists, were failing without maintenance. The alien farmers had learned to operate the equipment but had never understood the science behind it. "We are producing 30% of our normal food supply," reported commune leader Voss. "Our population is already showing signs of malnutrition. Within a year, we will face complete famine." The Vegan Mining Consortium had similar problems with their industrial operations. Human engineering teams didn't just build our machines, explained Director Kell. They constantly improved them. They found more efficient methods. They solved problems before we even knew the problems existed. Now our productivity drops every day and we don't know how to fix it. But the most frightening reports came from the intelligence services. Agent Prime of the Council Security Force stood up slowly. His species communicated through color changes in their skin, and right now his entire body was flashing warning patterns. "We have detected unusual activity in the outer spiral region," he reported. "Massive energy signatures. Construction projects on a scale we have never seen before. Our ships that attempt to investigate are turned away by unknown human vessels." This news caused an uproar in the chamber. Unknown human vessels? Construction projects? What were the humans building out there in the empty space beyond the galaxy's edge? "How is this possible?" demanded the Altarian Chancellor. "Humans have only been in space for 50 years. They don't have the resources for massive construction projects." Agent Prime's skin flashed deeper warning colors. "Our analysis suggests that humans have been planning this for much longer than we realized. They have been secretly surveying the outer spiral for years. They have been stockpiling resources and equipment. They have been preparing for complete independence from galactic civilization." The implications hit the chamber like a shockwave. The humans hadn't withdrawn in anger. They had withdrawn according to a carefully planned strategy. They had been preparing to leave the galaxy's civilized regions long before the peace talks even began. "But why?" asked Dr. Kess. "Why would they plan such a thing?" Fleet Admiral Santos of the human military had visited many of these worlds during the war. Council members remembered him as a quiet, professional officer who seemed to respect alien customs and traditions. They had never imagined that he was also evaluating their weaknesses and planning for humanity's eventual separation. The Zephyrian High Counselor, who at first proposed supervising human military forces, now looked sick with worry. "We must send diplomatic missions to establish contact with these human colonies," he suggested. "We must reopen negotiations," but Agent Prime shook his head. "All human territories are now marked as restricted space. Any non-human vessel that enters receives a simple message. This territory belongs to the human colonial sphere. Non-citizens are not welcome. Please adjust your course immediately." "And if ships refuse to leave?" asked Chancellor Thex. "They are escorted out by vessels that our sensors cannot properly identify," Agent Prime replied. "The ships appear to be human in design, but they use technologies that we have never seen before. They move faster than anything in our fleets. They seem to appear from nowhere and disappear just as quickly." The council chamber fell silent as the full scope of their situation became clear. Humanity hadn't just withdrawn from galactic civilization. They had built a replacement for it. While the council species struggled with collapsing infrastructure and failing defenses, humans were creating something new in the empty spaces beyond the galaxy's edge. Some council members began to suggest that they had made a mistake in treating humanity as a junior partner. But others, particularly the older species, refused to admit any error. "They are still young," insisted the Altarian Chancellor. "They may have advanced technology, but they lack wisdom. They lack the experience that comes with age." Emperor Kess stood up slowly. "Your wisdom didn't stop the Devourers," he said quietly. "Your experience didn't save my worlds. Human inexperience is what won the war." "They got lucky," the Chancellor replied. "Lucky circumstances do not make them fit for leadership." "And yet," said High Commander Drex, "they are thriving while we are dying." The argument that followed would have continued for hours, but it was interrupted by an urgent communication from the Rim worlds. The message was brief but terrifying. "Massive Devourer fleet detected approaching core sector. Estimated arrival in 72 hours. All Council fleets are too far away to intercept. Request immediate assistance." The chamber erupted in panic. The core sector contained the homeworlds of the Council's founding members, including the Altarian capital. If those worlds fell to the Devourers, galactic civilization would collapse completely. Chancellor Thex's crystal body flickered wildly as he tried to process the implications. All of the Council's military forces were spread across the galaxy, trying to deal with rebellions and security crises. None of them could reach the core sector in time to stop the Devourer attack. In the confusion and fear that followed, one voice spoke clearly through the noise. "Send a message to the humans." It was Emperor Kess who had spoken. His proposal silenced the chamber instantly. "We need their help," he continued. "We need their ships, their tactics, and their void walkers. We need the people we treated as junior partners to save us from extinction." The Altarian Chancellor's light flared with anger. "We will not beg." "Then we will die," Kess replied simply. "The choice is ours." The message went out from the council chambers with the highest priority encoding possible. It traveled through space faster than any ship, riding on quantum communication networks that connected every civilized world in the galaxy. The destination was Earth, but nobody knew if anyone there would even receive it. Emperor Kess had insisted on writing the message himself. It was short and direct. To the human colonial government, massive devourer fleet approaching core sector. 72 hours until arrival. All council forces too distant to respond. Request immediate assistance. Lives of 40 billion beings at stake. The response came back in less than 6 hours. It did not come from Earth's diplomatic corps or from President Chen. Instead, it bore the signature of Fleet Admiral Santos himself. Humanity will act to preserve life. We do not serve the Council, but we will not allow genocide. Human forces are already moving to intercept. The council chamber erupted in confusion when this message was read aloud. Human forces were already moving? How was that possible? The attack had only been detected 18 hours ago, and the message had been sent just 6 hours earlier. Agent Prime of the security force provided the disturbing answer. Long-range sensors have detected a large fleet moving from the outer spiral toward the core sector. They are traveling faster than any vessels in our databases. Estimated arrival time puts them at the core sector 12 hours ahead of the Devourer fleet. Chancellor Thex's crystal form flickered with disbelief. "How many ships?" "We cannot get an accurate count," Agent Prime admitted. "Our sensors are having difficulty tracking them. The vessels appear to be using some kind of stealth technology that we have never encountered before." High Commander Drex of the Draconian Hegemony stood up slowly. "Are we certain these are human vessels? Could they belong to some unknown species?" "Communication protocols confirm human origin," Agent Prime replied. "But the ship designs are completely unfamiliar. These are not the vessels that fought in the Void Wars." Dr. Kess leaned forward in her seat. "How different can they be? Humans have only had 9 months to develop new technology." Agent Prime's skin flashed warning colors. "According to our analysis, these ships represent advances that should take centuries to develop. Either humans have made impossible scientific breakthroughs, or they have been working on this technology much longer than we realized." The implications sent chills through every being in the chamber. Had humanity been secretly developing advanced warships during the peace negotiations? Had they been planning for war while pretending to seek peace? Or worse, had they developed capabilities that made the Council's entire military obsolete? 48 hours passed in tense silence. Long-range sensors tracked both fleets as they moved through space toward their inevitable collision. The Devourer fleet was massive, containing bioships the size of small moons. Intelligence estimates suggested it was the largest Devourer force ever assembled, possibly created from the survivors of multiple defeated fleets. The human fleet remained mysterious. Sensors could detect energy signatures and movement patterns, but could not provide clear images of the vessels themselves. The ships seemed to bend light around them, making detailed observation impossible. Then came the first battle reports. The engagement began in the outer reaches of the core sector, near the gas giant Altus Prime. The Devourer bioships moved in their typical formation, using their living hulls to absorb enemy fire while their organic weapons searched for targets. What happened next defied everything the galaxy thought it knew about space combat. The human ships appeared without warning in the middle of the Devourer formation. They had somehow jumped directly into close combat range without being detected. The bioships, which normally could sense approaching enemies from vast distances, were caught completely off guard. But more shocking than their sudden appearance was what the human vessels looked like. The first clear images came from automated monitoring stations near the battle site. When the data reached the council chambers, the assembled aliens stared in silent amazement. These were not the crude metal ships that humans had used in the Void Wars. These vessels seemed to be grown rather than built, with smooth organic curves that reminded some observers of living creatures. They moved through space like sea creatures swimming through water, graceful and fluid in ways that defied conventional understanding of spacecraft design. and they were devastating in combat. The human ships flowed around the Devourer bioships like schools of predatory fish. They struck from multiple directions simultaneously, using weapons that seemed to dissolve their targets rather than simply destroying them. Devourer bioships that had survived direct hits from Council superweapons simply fell apart when touched by human fire. But the most incredible sight was the human Void Walkers in action. During the Void Wars, Council observers had seen individual humans moving through space without ships, but they had always assumed this was a limited ability used for reconnaissance and sabotage. Now they watched as thousands of Void Walkers flowed through the battle like ghosts. They moved in coordinated formations, appearing inside Devourer bioships and tearing them apart from within. They seemed to be everywhere at once, striking vital systems and disappearing before the creatures could respond. The battle lasted exactly 6 hours and 17 minutes. When it was over, the entire Devourer fleet had been destroyed. Not damaged, not defeated, completely annihilated. The monitoring stations could detect nothing but debris and fading energy signatures. The human fleet gathered briefly near the battle site, then simply vanished. One moment they were there, the next moment space was empty except for the remains of their enemies. In the council chambers, the assembled aliens sat in stunned silence. They had just watched a military performance that seemed impossible even by their most advanced standards. The human fleet had appeared from nowhere, destroyed an enemy that threatened the galaxy's core worlds, and disappeared again without asking for thanks or recognition. But the most disturbing part came in the final battle report. Agent Prime stood before the Council with information that would change everything they thought they knew about humanity. Analysis of the battle data reveals several disturbing facts, he began. First, the human ships use technologies that we cannot identify or understand. Second, they demonstrated tactical coordination that suggests a level of military development far beyond what we observed during the Void Wars. He paused, his skin flashing deeper warning colors. But most importantly, energy output analysis suggests that what we witnessed was not humanity's full military capability. The fleet that destroyed the Devourer force appears to have been operating at approximately 30% capacity. The implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. If the human ships that had just annihilated the galaxy's greatest threat were only operating at partial power, what did that say about humanity's true capabilities? Chancellor Thex tried to maintain his composure, but his crystal form was flickering wildly. How is this possible? 9 months ago, humans were using primitive metal ships and crude weapons. Emperor Kess stood up slowly. 9 months ago, we insulted them and told them they needed supervision. 9 months ago, we treated them like dangerous children who couldn't be trusted with advanced technology. His voice carried across the silent chamber. It appears that the children have grown up, and we never noticed. Dr. Kess added her own disturbing observation. If humans could develop such capabilities in secret, what else have they been hiding from us? What else do they know that we don't? The answer to her question came in the form of merchant vessels that began appearing in neutral space near the galaxy's outer territories. These ships bore the markings of something called the human colonial sphere, and they offered goods and services that made even the most advanced alien technology look primitive. The merchants were polite but firm in their dealings. They would trade with independent worlds and species that had declared themselves separate from Council authority, but they refused all contact with Council governments, citing policy differences regarding sovereignty and mutual respect. The message was clear. Humanity was not hiding in the outer darkness, licking its wounds and hoping to be readmitted to galactic civilization. They were building something better, something that made the Council's ancient bureaucracy look outdated and inefficient. And they were inviting others to join them, as long as those others were willing to reject Council authority and embrace human leadership. In the weeks that followed the battle, disturbing reports continued to arrive. 17 Council member species had sent diplomatic missions to human territory, seeking trade agreements and alliance treaties. Independent worlds throughout the galaxy were declaring their intention to leave Council space and join the human colonial sphere. The galaxy was choosing sides, and increasingly, they were choosing humanity over the Council that had ruled them for millennia. Chancellor Thex called emergency session after emergency session, but the Council's authority was crumbling. They had treated humanity as junior partners, and now humanity was proving that they were the galaxy's natural leaders. The humans had not begged to return to the peace talks. Instead, they had made the peace talks irrelevant. 1 year had passed since humanity walked away from the peace talks. The Galactic Council, which had ruled space for over 3,000 years, was falling apart. In the grand chamber where alien leaders once gathered to make decisions for the galaxy, only half the seats were now filled. 43 member species had formally declared independence from Council authority. They had joined something called the Human Colonial Sphere, a growing alliance of worlds that stretched across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Reports from these worlds described prosperity, security, and technological advancement that made Council territories look backwards and struggling. Chancellor Thex stood alone in the center of the chamber, his crystal body dim and flickering. Around him sat the representatives of the remaining Council species, but their faces showed defeat and desperation. The great empire that had lasted for millennia was dying, and everyone knew it. "The situation has become impossible," announced High Commander Drex of the Draconian Hegemony. "Yesterday, my own military commanders presented me with a petition. They want to surrender their commissions and join the human forces. They say they cannot defend our worlds with obsolete weapons and outdated tactics." Emperor Kess nodded grimly. "My situation is similar. The rebellion in the outer territories has spread to our core worlds. The rebels are not fighting for independence anymore. They are fighting to join the human sphere. They see prosperity on human worlds while our people struggle with poverty and conflict." Dr. Kess of the Medical Collective added her own bleak report. "The plague that we could not cure has been eliminated on all worlds that joined the human sphere." Human medical teams arrived within days of each world's declaration of independence. They brought treatments that worked immediately and completely. Meanwhile, our people continue to die from diseases that humans can cure with simple injections. The reports continued, each one painting the same picture. The human colonial sphere was everything that the Galactic Council had failed to be. It was efficient where the Council was bureaucratic. It was innovative where the Council was traditional. It was prosperous where the Council was declining. Most painful of all, it was growing stronger every day while the Council grew weaker. Agent Prime delivered the final intelligence report. Long-range sensors have confirmed the existence of over 300 human colonies in the outer spiral region. These are not small settlements or research outposts. These are full cities with populations in the millions. Some appear to be larger and more advanced than our own capital worlds. Chancellor Thex tried to process this information. 300 colonies? Where had humanity found the resources to build such an empire in just 1 year? "How long have they been planning this?" he asked. Agent Prime's skin flashed patterns of uncertainty. "Our analysis suggests that humans began surveying the outer spiral during the first year of the Void Wars. While we thought they were simply exploring empty space, they were actually identifying suitable worlds for colonization. They have been working on this project for 5 years, possibly longer." The implications were staggering. While the Council species had been fighting for their lives against the Devourers, humanity had been calmly planning their own separate civilization. They had fought the war, saved the galaxy, and built a backup plan all at the same time. "But the resources," protested the Zephyrian High Counselor. "Building 300 colonies would require enormous amounts of materials and equipment. How did they transport everything without us knowing?" "They didn't transport it," Agent Prime replied. "Analysis of captured human technology suggests they have developed manufacturing methods that are far more efficient than ours. They can create advanced materials and equipment from common resources that we would consider worthless. They don't need to transport factory ships to build colonies. They can build factories from asteroid debris and cosmic dust." The chamber fell silent as the aliens contemplated what they were hearing. Humanity had not just developed better weapons. They had developed better everything. Better manufacturing, better medicine, better agriculture, better government. They had become what the Council species had claimed to be, the advanced civilization that others should learn from. The breaking point came when emergency alarms began sounding throughout the chamber. The massive displays showed red warning symbols as incoming messages flooded the communication systems. "Multiple Devourer attacks reported in core sector," Agent Prime announced, his voice tight with fear. 17 different systems under assault simultaneously. Enemy forces are using new tactics and appear to be coordinated by some form of collective intelligence. Chancellor Thex felt his crystal body grow cold. How many council fleets can respond? None, sir. All our forces are committed to internal security operations. The rebellions and independence movements have stretched our military resources beyond their limits. High Commander Drex stood up slowly. Then we are finished. The core worlds cannot survive a coordinated devourer assault without military support. Emperor Kess looked around the chamber at the desperate faces of his fellow leaders. We have one option left, he said quietly. Everyone knew what he meant. The same option they had been avoiding for an entire year. We must ask the humans for help, Kess continued, not as the Council requesting assistance from a member species. As defeated leaders begging salvation from our conquerors. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. For 3,000 years, the Council species had been the galaxy's teachers, leaders, and protectors. The idea of begging help from humans, beings they had dismissed as junior partners just 1 year ago, was almost too painful to contemplate. But the alternative was extinction. Chancellor. Thex tried one final protest. Perhaps we could negotiate some kind of mutual assistance treaty. Something that preserves our dignity while acknowledging human capabilities. Agent Prime shook his head. Sir, intelligence reports indicate that humans are no longer interested in treaties with the Council. They have moved beyond us. They are building something entirely new and they don't need our permission or approval. The truth was inescapable. Humanity had not withdrawn from galactic civilization to sulk in isolation. They had withdrawn to build a replacement for it. A better version of it. And they had succeeded so completely that the original was now obsolete. Emperor Kess stood up and walked to the communication console. I will send the message myself, he announced. As the senior surviving council member, the responsibility is mine. His message was simple and direct. To the human colonial government, the Galactic Council formally requests an audience to discuss the future of our respective civilizations. We acknowledge that our previous relationship was based on outdated assumptions and mutual misunderstandings. We seek new arrangements that reflect current realities. The response came back within hours, but it did not come from Earth or from any human government facility. Instead, it came from a place called New Geneva, described as the capital of the human colonial sphere. The message was signed by Ambassador Elena Vasquez, the same woman who had walked out of the peace talks 1 year earlier. She was no longer Earth's representative to alien governments. Now she was Secretary of Interstellar Affairs for a civilization that spanned hundreds of worlds. The human colonial sphere will receive a council delegation at New Geneva, her message read. We will discuss terms for the orderly transition of authority in affected regions. Please note that these will not be negotiations between equals. The Council's authority is no longer recognized in most of inhabited space. We are offering you the opportunity to surrender gracefully rather than face complete irrelevance. The words were polite, but devastating. The humans were not offering to rejoin the Council. They were offering to accept the Council's surrender. 3 days later, Chancellor Thex led a small delegation of Council leaders to New Geneva. The journey took them through human space, past colonies and industrial centers that made their own worlds look primitive by comparison. Human ships escorted them politely but firmly, making it clear that they were guests in someone else's territory. New Geneva itself was a revelation. The city stretched across an entire continent, with spires that reached into the clouds and transportation systems that moved people and goods with impossible efficiency. The population appeared to be a mixture of humans and aliens, all working together in apparent harmony. But what struck the Council delegates most was the vitality of the place. This was not a civilization in decline, struggling to maintain ancient traditions. This was a civilization at the height of its power, confident and growing stronger every day. Ambassador Vasquez received them in a conference room overlooking the city center. She wore the same calm expression she had shown 1 year earlier when she walked out of the peace talks. But now she radiated the authority of someone who spoke for the galaxy's dominant power. Gentlemen, she began, thank you for coming. I understand that you wish to discuss the future relationship between our civilizations. Chancellor Thex tried to maintain his dignity. We hope to establish some form of cooperative arrangement that acknowledges both human capabilities and council experience. Elena smiled, but there was no warmth in it. The time for cooperation ended when you treated us as junior partners who needed supervision. What you are witnessing now is not a negotiation between equals. It is the end of one era and the beginning of another. She gestured toward the window where the thriving city stretched to the horizon. We offered to work with you as partners. You chose to treat us as children, so we built our own civilization, and it has grown beyond anything your council ever achieved. The question now is not whether we will rejoin your authority. The question is whether your surviving worlds want to join our commonwealth. Emperor Kess spoke quietly. What are your terms? Complete dissolution of the council authority structure, Elena replied without hesitation. Establishment of the Terran Commonwealth as the galaxy's governing body. All former council species welcome as equal members, but under human leadership principles. Merit over tradition, cooperation over hierarchy, earned respect over assumed authority. She placed a document on the table between them. This is the New Geneva Accords. It establishes the legal framework for galactic government going forward. You can sign it and maintain some influence in the new order, or you can refuse and watch your remaining worlds join us individually. Chancellor Thex stared at the document. 3,000 years of council authority, ended by a piece of paper written by beings his people had dismissed as primitives just 1 year ago. But as he read through the terms, he realized something surprising. The document was not vindictive or cruel. It offered the council species genuine partnership in a new government, just not as the dominant partners they had always been. It promised protection, prosperity, and technological advancement for any world that joined the Commonwealth. It was everything the council had claimed to offer, but actually delivered. With a hand that shook only slightly, Chancellor Thex signed the New Geneva Accords. One by one, the other council leaders added their signatures. As the ceremony concluded, Elena looked out at the city beyond the windows. You know, she said thoughtfully, we never wanted to rule the galaxy. We just wanted to be treated as equals who had earned their place through service and sacrifice. She turned back to the former council leaders. You taught us that respect must be earned, not demanded. You taught us that those who underestimate others do so at their own peril. We have learned those lessons well. The Galactic Council was dead. Long live the Terran Commonwealth. And across the galaxy, world after world lined up to join the new order, seeking the prosperity and security that only human leadership had been able to provide. Humanity had not just stepped away from the peace talks. They had stepped into their destiny as the galaxy's reluctant but necessary shepherds.